Good morning, everybody. All right. It seems like yesterday was a pretty successful day. All right. We got you up early this morning for more. Well, good. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about really what we want to talk about is how we're making it easier to find insights and how Power BI is investing has a strategy over time to keep making it easier and easier for more users to get access to data. I came to the Power BI team. Actually, I started at Microsoft 12 years ago working on a project that later became Performance Point. And then Amir Netz kind of dragged me over into the SQL BI world. But then I really got into, kind of before Power BI, working on Q&A. It was the natural language project. And there was this memo from Bill G that really talked about, why is BI and why is finding data so complicated? And it posed a lot of very interesting questions about, given a long lineage of search technology and natural language technology and data visualization technology. We had Power View at the time. And the question is, why was it so difficult to get visualizations created? And could we take some new approaches to that? And that kicked off a couple incubation projects where we looked at, one thing was called Info Touch, and so it was about interacting with data in a touch way. I think you've seen some demos of that from our team. And the other one was focused on natural language. And it was a really great learning process. We brought together a very good team, and we just knocked down a lot of very interesting problems, focused on specifically searching a structured data model for data, but pairing it with a visualization engine, so we were trying to be smart about what visualizations were created. And that technology now has evolved, and we kind of shipped it in the first version of Power BI, which was the SharePoint integration that we had. And now we got it into this Power BI SaaS service. And it's a very exciting time for us because now that we've really matured the visualization stack for Power BI, we're doing a new investment in this engine to really bring it up to speed with the user experience. And you saw some of that in the keynote. The other thing it did is it created some great relationships with other teams at Microsoft. It created relationships with Microsoft Research. It created relationships with the Cortana team, because these were all experts in the space and looking at different things. And it actually led to personal relationships, which is at Microsoft one of the things you get things done across division, to be able to pull in some MSR code, and we'll talk about that with quick insights, in really the vision for that functionality. And also the integration we've done with Cortana, which we think is a very powerful and unique set of capabilities. So let's go ahead and get started here, and we'll take a look at these different attributes. So we talk about the differentiators of Power BI. We talk about out-of-the-box content packs, so I can connect to a SaaS service, whether it's QuickBooks or Salesforce. The interesting thing about that scenario is it's not just a connection to data, but it's actually a schema. So when we did the QuickBooks connector, we hired accountants for several months to do nothing but build the schema for that connector. And actually that's the root of a lot of the data exploration problem, is you have to have a good schema of data. There's no magic to having data to be well structured. If data is unstructured, you're kind of into a different product category. So the pre-built dashboards and content packs and org content packs and making sure we have great analyst tools and developer tool sets are really about creating that schema for data so it's very easy to explore it, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. We have real-time monitoring is something we talk about. We talk about fast deployment. But on that bottom row, we actually talk about some other interesting things. We talk about natural language exploration as a key differentiator. And we'll focus on that today. We talk about integration with familiar products. Typically, that's been talking about Excel, but now we can put a little Windows icon and a Cortana icon, because again, we want, if you choose Power BI to work seamlessly with the Microsoft stack, because we think that we can do some really unique and cool things by doing that. Finally, we talk about hybrid solutions that have this live connectivity or direct connect on-premise. And you heard the announcement in the keynote yesterday that that's something that we're adding support for the natural language capability. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. In terms of session level, we're going to bounce a little bit from 100 down, maybe for some people, to 400. And I'll try to keep it lighthearted, but there's some things I think is interesting, and I know we'll have a diverse set of people in the room. So I apologize if I get too technical. I have a tendency to do that. But the first thing I want to talk about before going further is actually the Quick Insights feature. So Microsoft does these tech fests, and we saw at this tech fest there was this really interesting, almost standalone product that was all about taking a data set and changing the exploration model to one where there was MSR had developed an engine with a package of algorithms it could keep adding to that would automatically scan your data and just basically give you starting points that says, hey, this might be interesting to you, and then allow you to do smart drills into that. So every time you picked a data point, you could say, oh, go get me some more interesting facts about this. Go get me some more interesting facts about this. This was really exciting to see. And sometimes it's a trick that I think Power BI has actually mastered to work with MSR to get that code into customers' hands, because it's from research into practice very difficult. But basically we saw that, we said, hey, we got to find a way to get this out the door. And so we've taken the approach with Quick Insights of just trying to get things out quickly, gather feedback, and just keep shipping, right? So the first thing you saw, and we'll look at that a demo of the first thing we shipped, it can be hit or miss in this space. But we think this is a strategic direction really in BI, which is using the power of the cloud or more performant computing devices to really just kind of brute force look for interesting algorithms or interesting subsets of data. And where this really hit me is we were talking to a customer who had a custom solution. It was a Hadoop hybrid cloud solution. And they had written insight mining algorithms. And they had their sales data up there, but what happened is every night they'd upload more data into this cloud, and these algorithms would kick off. And they were talking about this one time that they uploaded sports schedules. Why upload sports schedules? Because they were in a world where they uploaded some sports schedules, and all of a sudden this insight mining engine kicked off and found correlations between their sales and home sporting events in their sales regions. And it just happened automatically. They never would have thought of doing it, but it just unleashed this creativity in their user base to say, I want to mash data together and do clever things, because there was something that would come of it. And really, that's the type of direction we want to move with this Quick Insights feature, is get people into a mode where you're experimenting, you're playing, you're trying to find outliers and do association you wouldn't normally think of. And it's a very exciting space. And so that's really the goal. The other types of things we want to do with this, and actually I'll talk about that. I'm going to get to the demo because I think I'm droning on here, and we'll talk about some directions we want to go with. So I'm going to switch over and do our first demo. And I decided to, the day before the conference, in addition to the keynote and last night, put together a new data set for demos. So you guys are actually getting a brand new data set for me for demos. I've done it once before, so if we hit some hiccups, you guys are kind of my cheering section to get me through it. So if you, we did a session yesterday. I showed you the Quick Insights capabilities that we had a little hiccup with the keynote. I don't think we'll have that hiccup again. So the first feature we enabled is when you upload a data set to Power BI, on the data set you have this ability to say, get insights. And what this does is we call into this MSR insight mining engine, and we start transacting data back and forth. We do a nice thing where we can time box the execution of it, which is a facility they have. So we can say we're going to run for about 10 seconds. We're going to run a wide variety of about 12 different algorithms looking for outliers, dominant factors, seasonality, trends. And really this feature was, hey, let's get this thing out the door and just like get the code running, see how it scales, get some user feedback. And it's just really, really fun. In fact, the moment that we knew we really had a hit is we took that Microsoft travel data, and the very, joking you not, the first time I ran this through, it found this insight that showed that there's this huge outlier in cost per mile for trips from to MCM was the airline code, which was Monaco. And it was because there were people taking very short trips from Nice to Monaco. This is about 7 miles. They don't have an airport in Monaco, so they were taking different mode of transportation. And I had played with that Microsoft travel data for like a year, and I had never seen this. And it was like the most hilarious insight that people were taking helicopter rides 7 miles, probably because of the Grand Prix. I mean, there's business cases we followed up for it. But and it was just like this exciting moment. So, okay, we got to get this thing out here and maybe people will find the same type of thing. Well, the data set we're using today, and I'm going to go ahead and open up this in Power BI Desktop as well, is I took the last 13 months of travel delays from the US Federal Travel Administration. So every time there's a flight, they log when it took off, when it landed, all the little delay categories. It's about 6 million rows, right? And so I uploaded this to the service. I was playing with some custom visuals on it as well. But so what this tracks, and we'll look over here to the flights, is again, this is 6 million rows of basically every flight for the last 13 months that was to and from a destination in the US, right? Broken down by carrier, and I built this nice little model for it with cancellation regions. So we said, hey, quick insights, let's run over that 6 million rows and see what you find. And the kind of things it found is it's like, hey, there was by flight date, and this is actually the exciting thing about the demo is I had no idea what was going to happen with this last night. I was kind of taking a risk. We were going to use the Microsoft Travel data set, but it worked pretty well. So we'll talk about what makes this work better in different circumstances as we go. But basically, it found some outliers that said, hey, there were security delay outliers on these on August 3rd, on Monday, November 9th. And it's kind of interesting. Like, there's these big spikes in security delays across the entire US. If I want to, actually, I can see the filter scope here. But I can actually drill down now, and this is where we're adding this new capability that we'll ship, is scoped insights. So now I've essentially set a scope or a context for the data. And I haven't actually done this before, so I'm like running quick insights for the first time. And we can actually see that the vast majority of these security delays came in Texas on this March 20th date. On August 30th, it was in Newark, New Jersey. New Orleans on March 20th. So really interesting potentially starting points for insight and to drill down. And so if I take one of these guys, and maybe this is kind of interesting to me, our beginning is you upload data. The middle is, hey, I can kind of explore this and drill down. And right now our end is I can go ahead and pin this back to a dashboard. And that's kind of a really quick overview of the feature that we have now. What's exciting about it is that we are sitting on top of this treasure trove of MSR capability and skill set, and so we're adding algorithms, we're tuning algorithms, and we have a bunch of really exciting scenarios that we want to push this forward to. So I'm going to run this one more time. So I pinned a visual to my dashboard. This is just looking at percentage of delayed arrivals versus the average arrival delay. So this is for a carrier. It's really interesting. Alaska Airlines, actually, they do a really good job of scheduling, apparently, because their average delay is 1 minute early. The blank up here is because I didn't get it into the table I joined with. That's Spirit Airlines, actually. So there you go. You learned something today. The data doesn't lie. So again, when you run, if the data hasn't changed, we cache these results for about 24 hours. So if it's more interactive, if people are looking at the same data set, we keep them cached in the service. That's why that ran so fast. But here we can see, hey, Alaska actually is kind of noticeably different than the others. And so this kind of found that same statistical condition. Interestingly, Montana is, although it's a pretty small window, it's interesting. You wouldn't think about flights from Montana apparently really do a good job of landing early. And it's funny, there's a seasonality in number of flights by week, it looks like, so it found a seasonality that is kind of, but this one actually I found really fascinating. So this is wheels on is the metric for the time of day that your plane landed, right? And what this is telling us is that if your plane landed at like 2:30 a.m. in the morning, there was a 86% chance that your flight was delayed, right? And it's just kind of fun stuff that you found, and it makes sense, right? I mean, this is like not rocket science. I guess if you're, if flights are arriving that late, this is delayed. But you can kind of see actually this build up. It tells a really nice story too. You see this build up throughout the day. So in the morning, there's not a lot of delays, and as the day goes and goes and goes and goes, people start getting more and more delays. So anyway. Really fun feature. I'm excited to get the scoped insights out because the biggest challenge you'll have running this feature today, if you've tried it, is if you have a big, complicated, gory model with lots of measures, we're basically giving this MSR team like 8 to 10 seconds. We keep tuning it back and forth. When you hit quick insights, we have a queue that we put you in so the service doesn't go down if everybody's hitting quick insights, which I'm sure is going to happen now. So we kind of queue you up, so you'll see a pop-up when you finish, but we give each of you a time box window to run these algorithms. And if you have a big, gory, complex model, it's really easy for these algorithms to get lost, right? Because where do you start, right? Because there's no context to know what's interesting. So we think this scoped insight capability is the first step to saying, yeah, that's great, you want to run on everything, but just focus on this for me for a second. and see what you find. The next step for this, we have lots of really crazy ideas, and actually we'd like to get more crazy ideas from you. You've heard probably 50 times, I'll say it again, we really use user voice, right? If you see this and you play with it and you're like, hey, why aren't you doing this like inside of a visual? If I click on a data point, why can't I run it? That's something we thought of. You know, could I subscribe to a notification that says, hey, every day run this algorithm on this subset, and if you find something new, let me know, right? These are the kind of things that we want to go for, and we'd love to get your feedback in user voice. And also, hey, are you comfortable giving this to your business users if you're an admin who's setting this up? If you're a business user, are you comfortable seeing this kind of information? Because data's data, right? You know, it's easy to get lost, right? You might be missing a key filter or something. So what are the places in which you think you can deploy this and use it in your organization? And what might you have to do to make it deployable? That's all really interesting feedback for us. This is, you know, there's a couple other people in the industry doing this, but I think we're really, really unique and try to put it front and center for everyone to use. Again, your feedback would be fantastic here. So it's an exciting feature. You guys, this is exciting stuff? All right, good. I'm excited about it. All right, there we go. Got to get everybody woken up this morning. OK, let's come back to slides here. So we did our demo. All right, so we're going to switch over and talk about our natural language search capability now. So I gave a little intro about where we started with Q&A. And really the big change for us now is, like I said, is the Q&A really is only as good as the creation of visuals for us. And we kind of made a strategic decision that we had to get our visualization stack really stable the way we want it to go forward. We also had to really lock down how we were connecting to data to start doing the things we wanted to really with this feature. And that includes bringing the UI up to a very modern state. It also means dealing with ambiguity in a little more interesting ways so we can use the NL engine more declaratively with our data structure. But it also means architecting things in such a way that we can use it with our on-premise and direct connect data sources. And really, we want to be symmetric. We want to be able to let you turn this feature on for any data you use in Power BI. And we also want to blur the barriers between just searching for data in an ad hoc way and finding, say, report sheets you have in the service, right? And we also wanted to make this available for other integrations. Again, in user voice, I think I saw one comment, and it might have been the Microsoft one, so if you don't see it, go at it. You know, why can't we have like a Slack chat bot or something that looks up data and gives me a report, right, in Slack or something? Like, these are all things that we could go do with this technology, and we're very excited to go in that path. And so again, this is an exciting time for our team because we're getting to kind of put this focus on this feature now that we have the platform up and we can really bring it up to snuff. So as we mentioned with the, I'll mention again just because I highlighted it out here, that direct query will be available in preview in April, and so will the new UI. So let's go and do a quick demo, and then we'll go into some slides to talk about specifics of things. So the first thing I actually want to do is I want to go, and this is app.powerbi.com. This is available today. I took this same data set that we were looking at and all these rows. You can see I have a little schema defined that has my flights information. I hid some of these lookup columns, and I gave myself some more information to work with in terms of destination states, origin states, the cancellation regions, this kind of stuff. I also added a couple measures to it that we'll play with in a second. So I don't need to worry about a dashboard stuff. I'm just going to ask some free-form questions here. So maybe we want to look at the percent of delayed arrivals. We have some nice autocomplete there. Maybe I want to compare this to the average arrival delay. And actually, I don't want all carriers, but we'll see. Hopefully, we don't pick that up. It's auto-completing to a measure I did, so I can do comparisons. But percentage of arrival delays versus average arrival delay. Maybe we want to look at this by carrier. Right? So again, we see this chart. That's kind of what we were looking at earlier. We can see Spirit way out here. It's a very fluid, easy experience to just ask some questions. Maybe I want to look at where the destination state is Hawaii. Right? maybe I don't want to look at where the destination state is. Why? The reason is carrier. So the reason is carrier. The cancellation reason. Oh, the cancellation reason by, let's look at this by airline. And what I'm actually giving you is a demo of why we've been so excited to get the new user experience in place. So there's a cancellation region called carrier. The reason that the flight was canceled is carrier. And so I was asking for to split it by carrier, but it found the other carrier. And so I could say airline and disambiguate, right? So let's do it by airline name. Oh, and get off completely off when you do your new demo data set. Oh, okay. So let's switch this around a little bit. By state, I'm just going to make some stuff here. Let's look at it by state. Holy moly, what's the state? Delaware. Okay, so Delaware, flying to Delaware is not a good thing. Okay, and now let's look at Delta Airlines, right? So apparently here's our Delta Airlines scatter plot, and we can start seeing these things. The other great thing about Q&A is since this is in the same visualization stack, what we have hopes for is that to start blurring the lines between, as I find an answer like this, leading you into the full visualization stack. Now we think we have to simplify this experience for authoring, because this is the same authoring experience that we would give to an analyst, and we want to start bringing in some more simple concepts for that. But maybe I actually want to flip over here, and I can actually start playing with some other stuff here. Maybe I want to look at this distance group as a legend, and so I can see I have these longer flights apparently on Delta to Colorado are more susceptible to delays, and so on and so forth. So I can kind of graduate my experience up. So the other thing you saw with me there on a new data set is, I was struggling to say, what should I ask for? How do these filters apply? What's the context of the answer? This is a great experience when you really know the data and you know how to kind of massage the natural language and work with things. But if we're going to make the claim that we want this to be for everybody, we have to do a little bit better, right? And so what's actually one of the things, we haven't talked about it much because we still have some little hiccups to work out of it. But in the service now, you'll see actually, you might see it popping up. When you create a new sheet and you give that sheet a name, performance summary, we'll actually start returning those answers. And this is available today. So that's the same sheet that I had in that workbook. So this is the performance summary sheet, right? So now I kind of have an anchoring point, right? So I have my anchoring point with lots more information in it. It's still interactive, so I can kind of do this. And this is, okay, great, we just did artifact search. It's not that amazing. But one reason we're very excited about it is now I might want to say, Delta Airlines, right? And so now I've filtered this for Delta Airlines, and maybe I want to say Seattle Tacoma International, and it's picked my destination, or it's picked my origin is SeaTac. Get my map updated here. There we go. And so just like that, I'm saying, hey, this is, if I'm flying from Delta, here are all the different places I'm flying to. I can come and say, well, this is the most common flight is to Atlanta in terms of number of flights. And so I want to drill down just to that Atlanta flight and get that information. And so this is a little bit of a graduated experience. So this is where we think we can start advancing towards more users being able to access the Q&A feature in a very simple way. We also think this is very important for more complex enterprise cases. So one of the things we run into with a lot of customers in Q&A is your guys' models sometimes, the data models, are really, really complicated, and they've got all sorts of weird crap in them. I've seen some of them. People are like, hey, why isn't this question working? And you look at it, and it's because reason code XYZ isn't set to true, and current period isn't set to 1, and all this stuff that happens in complex BI models. So we'll talk about how we're doing this feature. Actually, maybe we'll switch over and we'll come back to the new UI in a second, because I want to talk about that point in my slides. So there's that concept of using a report sheet as an answer. And what we think we're doing here is actually kind of cool, is we're taking, and useful. I mean, we're not just doing this stuff because it's cool, we're doing it because we think we can really change how people interact with data. We're actually taking these report sheets and we're thinking of them as entities, linguistic entities. This is a thing that you guys have created and you've given reason to. And because we've made it a thing that has reason, you can integrate it into our NL capability, right? So if you saw the very, very first version of our product, turns out our engine has the ability to specify verbs and synonyms and adjectives and all this rich contextual meaning, so you can actually put in really crazy utterances that we interpret correctly, right? We haven't unlocked all that UI yet, because again, it's this kind of a phased process. But with these report sheets, we can use them now as this kind of entity. So it's not just, hey, report search, kind of find a filter. We really want to understand what this thing is and understand its context within the data. It allows you to, again, the kind of key feature here is you can just kind of use this seamlessly and apply filters. One of the really interesting things we'll be able to do with this is if you have, and we'll take a look at an example with the required single select, maybe you've defined an entity for an airline. Well, maybe I want to see 10 airlines, and we can repeat the same answer for 10 airlines, because again, we understand this item as a context. In that report, you can apply some of your default and more complicated filter conditions, and then you can use all the full set of visualization capabilities. One reason we haven't talked about this as much is some things like the custom visuals feature, the enabling of that. We're still working through a couple things. You guys get the preview for coming from the conference, so you know it's there and have an idea of how to work with it. And then, going forward with the release of the new user experience, that's when we think we'll really light this thing up with custom visuals and all those specific details. But we think just this idea of using report sheets as a full entity really broadens the scope and makes this idea of people searching for data on their own a much more realistic promise. Because you don't have to rely on users understanding these complex filter conditions or how to navigate the report. They can just say, hey, I want to see this information and find it. Okay. I also want to talk about the direct query and what we're doing with that. So we got a pretty good round of applause. What percentage of the room right now is using data that they upload to Power BI as an exclusive solution? So it looks like a third of the room. And what is using more or less exclusively hosted on-premise data? Okay, about the same equal. And then what are using both? Like you're using both. Okay, so actually it's like a third, a third, a third. It's really interesting. Although I think some people put their hands up twice, which means some people didn't put their hands up, which means you need to go sign up for Power BI. If you've been here and you haven't signed up for Power BI, it's an odd experience. Okay, so the way we're doing direct query data sources is we looked at lots of different architectures of this. We looked at, hey, should we ship the NL engine just in analysis services tabular, right? Because that's where it ships today in the cloud. That's where it runs, and we could have just shipped it there. Should we put it in the enterprise gateway? I had an architect almost strangle me because that thing's supposed to be super lightweight and fast. And he's like, you want to put what in my beautiful enterprise gateway? I said, an NL engine of incredible complexity and robustness. And so what we settled on is putting it in the cloud. And this might be a little small to read, so I'll kind of walk through it. What we actually are doing is from the schema that we use for all of your data sources, we can generate a linguistic model. We look at all the entities, we look at the relationships, we even look at the names, and we automatically determine synonyms. We have heuristics that if you have a column called to and from, we try to auto-generate prepositional phrasings for to and from. We try to do all this clever stuff when we ingest your data. So we can do that basically just off the schema, right? And so when you do a direct connect or direct query model, we have that schema. That's how we're architected, so we can build that schema. To make the NL run, we then take a cache of what we do is we prioritize the string values in your database, and we pull a cache up into the cloud. So we say we don't cache things that are really long strings. We try to avoid stuff that might look like an ID column. And we try to prioritize what we cache, and we cache, what we'll do in the preview is about 500,000 unique string values. Again, this is a thing where, this is why we'll ship this feature in preview first, is so we need to get feedback from you guys and see how that actually works. Is that a reasonable limit? We kind of ballparked it based off of some enterprise models we saw, and it seems like putting a cache limit there works pretty well. And then the addition of giving you, if it's too complicated from there, you could tune it in a way if you wanted to. This is an opt-in feature, so you choose to turn this on. And then once we've done that, we can run our natural language engine in the cloud. And so it can run incredibly fast, right? So we're just looking over a very efficient database of those string values with this NL engine, and essentially understand what you're asking for. So we use all that information. We even use the report sheets and the schema from those to understand what the question you've asked for. And we can do that as you type. Once we found that little down arrow, is we can hand that off to the visualization and go pull that data. Now all this, a whole bunch of people in this room don't care about all this complexity. For you, it'll just work. That's the great thing, is you can type your question, you can do disambiguation, you can do autocomplete, you can do all these great things. And then those queries can go down. And what I have here is an on-premise tabular model. The reason we've set this up this way is we were playing with this with multidimensional. Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't work. We have bugs we got to go fix because we haven't run our visualization for Q&A on top of multidimensional. But there's essentially nothing in this architecture that stops us from doing this for SAP HANA or Spark HD or Teradata or Oracle or any other source that we know how to do a direct connection to. So we're still working out exactly how we'll phase the release of all those capabilities. Again, this is a place we need feedback. The issue we have is that some databases just don't like receiving a lot of queries, right? And some databases are not good at doing aggregates like tabular models are. So tabular model, you can aggregate anything, you can kind of do crazy joins, and it just kind of works. For these other data sources, you don't want to send your ERP with a direct connect all these queries. So unlocking these insights for everybody off of any data, that's in the roadmap and to do. So one of the takeaways from this is what are the data sources you're using, and then we'll do some feature switches and stuff so people can turn that on or choose to opt in for that. But again, we think that's a very exciting, and really this is leveraging what Power BI is in terms of its uniqueness with this hybrid architecture, that not only are we saying, hey, you can use our tools to develop data models, but you can use our tools to develop data models over other data sets, other data sources, data structures, and still have this user experience be symmetric. So we're very excited to keep building out that capability. And I think you'll see us do some things very similar to what we've done with, so we have a big thing on the Power BI team. We release the service every week. We release the desktop every month. We release custom visuals every week. So we hope to get into a similar pattern of lighting up this direct connect capability where we can get the team on a flywheel, where we test out a data source connection and make sure it works, and it's up to a level of standard to get it into that public sphere. So again, user voice is a great way for us to get feedback and to prioritize things here, because we can choose where to go first. So is this exciting? Is this something that people are interested in using? Is there? Good. Sorry for droning on about the technical stuff. You can see this is the great passionate stuff here for me to do and to figure out for you guys. So yeah, please give us feedback, and when this gets going, there's a lot of moving parts here, so we need your help in getting this thing right. Okay. Well, I want to show a couple other things here, and then we're going to talk about our Cortana integration. Okay. So there's one other thing in here, so I can say, okay. So you see this really nice autocomplete? I said just type details for, and now I'm going to say AA1. Look at AA1. And this brought back this nice little kind of narrow card, and it's filtered to flight number AA1, which I think is American Airlines from JFK to Los Angeles. Right? So this is kind of a typical scenario, right? I'm about to get on a flight. In this case, this is showing me the historical flight details for this. And it's still fully interactive. It's got a cute little map in it, all this great stuff. I did a unique little thing on this. As I came in and I said I could also have said stats apparently. When I set up this card, when I gave it the name, I said stats. I could also give it alternate names, in this case detail. On the page level filter, and I just have it selected 1, and I assure you it works when I type AA10. We'll show that in a second, I guess. But I checked this checkbox required single select. The reason for that is this card only makes sense when I pick one flight, right? I actually call this the Peyton Manning scenario. So if I said show me stats for, and you had a sheet called stats, and it was meant for quarterbacks. You don't want to show stats for a running back or stats for all quarterbacks. You want stats for one quarterback. So what this does is it requires you to say an instance of this column, right? You have to say quarterback stats for Peyton Manning or flight stats for this flight. And we'll only return this answer if you meet this set of conditions. So now we've got the ability to, do these kind of rich specific entities. The other thing is just using the same features we have in Power BI. We were able to size things differently, and we actually have this one kind of size that's Cortana sized, right? And we took this approach that we said, hey, and we'll talk about how we do the Cortana integration, but we basically said, hey, we're going to put stuff in Power BI, and you can say, hey, Cortana, you can look for it. And if Cortana, you find something you want to show, you can show it. And so if you put something in Power BI that Cortana sees and it looks like it's going to fit in Cortana's window, she shows it, right? She makes it available as an answer. So again, and this feature also works, as I showed, it's available as a report authoring concept. I guess I'm getting out of order for my slides, but let's just do this really quick. Details for AA 10, or 101 maybe, right? But I did this is again, I'm like selfish. I'm going to deploy this at Microsoft, so now when I go on a flight, I can always look up very quickly with apparently Cortana correctly opened the Power BI card, and Power BI is failing to give Cortana the data in an efficient manner. I'm sorry, Cortana. I should give her a little voice thing so she can yell at me. So let's ask the question again. And we can fetch this data down, or maybe not. Thank you, Cortana. Cortana and I have a very interesting relationship, where sometimes Cortana has trouble finding my data, and sometimes she doesn't. So let's try this one more time. Luckily, it's very easy to ask these questions, and we'll go through exactly the mechanics of how this is working. Apparently, I've hit a gremlin again, so we'll come back to you, Cortana, in a second. Maybe actually, yeah, we'll deal with that. So what we're doing here is let's talk about the Cortana slides, and then we'll talk about the flow of how this is all working. So as I mentioned, turns out I had a friend that had worked on Power BI, another friend in MSR, that both ended up on the Cortana team. And we said, hey, we should do this. So we did a prototype, and we made a video, and we sent it to all the executives, and they saw this and said, how come you're not doing this, to our leadership? And then our leadership said, WTF. And we're doing it now. So that's sometimes the best way to get things done. And what we did is we looked at what Cortana does. And Cortana does answers over kind of public reference data. She can do predictions. She can do monitoring and alerting. She can do task completion. She's a very robust personal assistant. And it's one that the Cortana team takes very seriously. When they developed this, they actually went and shadowed actual personal assistants to the stars, to wealthy people, and interviewed them to understand when you are a personal assistant, you don't start asking personal questions right away. You have to learn about the person. You develop a relationship. So you don't actually go into depth until after you really know the person. And the team is super serious about the voice of Cortana and the methodology of Cortana. And so it's been a great relationship learning from them and figuring out how exactly we're going to take this preview of Cortana integration into production. And so we match this idea of a digital personal assistant that now has access to more information. Because when we looked at the consumer scenarios, we said, well, what could we do for enterprise scenarios? What could we do with Power BI? You can get this integration with just Power BI. It gets a lot better with the Cortana Analytics suite. Again, we're big believers in better with. The first thing that's available today is just the scenario we're talking about, is enterprise answers from your data model using the Q&A infrastructure to do that. With the Cortana Analytics team, you saw some things from Power Apps. We've talked about the Cortana Analytics roadmap. We've talked about these other additional scenarios. So predictions, you can actually kind of approximate that with the Q&A scenario today, but going forward. So we think this is a very exciting roadmap for things. And I want to show all of you guys how to get this signed up for this, right? So who here has Windows 10 and has updated it to the most recent version? Okay, so all of you guys are eligible to try this. All you have to do is you add when you go to add accounts, you'll see a thing to add a work or school account. You add a work or school account, you use your Power BI account. So it's sometimes the same as your enterprise account. Sometimes it's just your trial account or whatever else. What Windows 10 has, and we're one of the first features to make use of this, in the November update, so if you look at your build number, you actually have to have a build number of 1511 or higher, which means you're just up to date for what is now. When you add that account credential to Cortana, it now knows how to essentially ask Power BI on your behalf, is there any data up in Power BI that you have access to? right? It's because it has that credential flow. So it's just seamless. Great thing for Microsoft employees is since our machines are domain joined, this gets added automatically. So anything that becomes available to them in Power BI just starts working. In Power BI, you have to opt in a data set for Cortana. We don't think this is a feature where we want to just enable everything, because in reality, not all your data sets probably are appropriate for a search in Cortana. That's a really, really technical, hard problem to do. So we think, hey, this is probably for something you want to roll out with some planning to it, right? It's something you specifically want to do. So you just go into a data set and you say, hey, enable this data set for Cortana. What we actually do is we take a cache up into the service that we can answer questions with really, really fast of just the string values. It's the same architecture we use for the direct query. And we build that, and now I can answer questions fast enough for the perf threshold for Cortana. So in Cortana, I have to know that there's an answer for you within 300 milliseconds. Finally, you have to turn on Cortana. The number of times I've had people that actually haven't turned on Cortana and say your feature's not working, even inside of Microsoft, I don't own that feature, so I can't make Cortana turn on. It currently requires an MSA account, right? That's one of the reasons this is in preview. Going forward, that limitation will go away in Windows 10. But today you have to essentially have a Hotmail account, Outlook account, or other MSA account for the Cortana public piece. Now, just really quick, I wanted to show this thing really quick. One interesting thing to note is we don't send any of the data actually through the Cortana public engine. So Windows 10 itself sends queries from the Cortana process directly to Power BI, and Power BI returns with essentially the report as an answer. So the data transfer is only between your Windows client and the Power BI tenant, and then when we do direct connect, it'll go down to the enterprise gateway. So we don't commingle any data with Cortana, because that was like one of the reasons the Cortana team came to us, is because they were like, whoa, we'll ingest all these customers' data up into Cortana in the cloud, and the customer said, what are you talking about? And luckily we had a solution that worked in a more sensible way. So we do this question classifier, we pick the models that are correct, and we think your content creators or people building even departmental solutions type things that are then passing this up through into Cortana. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you is this machine is my Microsoft machine. I'm logged in at Microsoft, so I can only get answers from Microsoft data, or data that's been published in the Microsoft server. So I have like Microsoft revenue. This is the public revenue earnings revenue release. So we have a content pack, so if you wanted to just see the most recent earnings release, you can say, hey, show me Microsoft revenue, and it goes and it gets me the summary of the recent earnings release, right? And a nice little link to the investor relations site. I published that model for, I think stats is another word, stats for AA. Oh. Let's try AA 101 again. There we go. So this is that card that I published. Again, I have this right here in Cortana. I can click back to Power BI. Again, as we showed, this is fully interactive Power BI canvas. Of course, the first thing that Amir Netz did with this is Joseph Sarosh has a demo about connected cows. It's a great demo. Turns out you put a pedometer on a cow, and you watch how they walk. You can learn things about the behavior, like when's the best time to make baby cows in polite terms, because you can tell. This is a fantastic demo, actually, using Cortana Analytics doing this. So the first thing we did, actually, I don't know if I have this turned on here, but I could ask for connected cows. And I can get my summary of cow information. So here's the cows that are currently in estrus based off their pedometers. Now, obviously, this is not actually hooked up to any real cows. But this kind of unleashes some creativity for people, right? And this is also why I talked about the Cortana team and Cortana personality, because they saw this demo and they're like, what are you doing with our baby? But now you get to do crazy stuff with their baby as well, which I think is one of the exciting things about this feature. Now, the reason I brought this Cortana test page is I can't, if I wanted to test my prod account, maybe I'm on a Mac, heaven forbid device, or I don't have Windows 10, or I just wanted to see what's going on. Maybe it's not working, and I just want to see it's not working. So we actually have, I can go to, so we can show, let's just do a quick thing here. It's going to take a second before it all sets up. You'll get the point across. So if I came to this data set, my travel delays data set. All I got to do is say apply, enable for Cortana. Again, this I'm logged in here as my GoCoogs account here. But if I go to app.powerbi.com/Cortana/test, again, this is something we haven't really broadcast, but we plan to. Now, it takes a couple seconds for all the models to warm up, so let's see. Hey, details. This is actually a big model, so the cache might take a little longer than this. Oh, it's already done. So now, what this page does is it simulates exactly what we served to Cortana. So if you really have no excuse not to play with this feature today, because all you got to do is go to app.powerbi/Cortana/test after having clicked enable. And if it doesn't work, you get to go tell us it's broken, and we fix it so we can get this thing out of preview and get people super excited for it. And so this is a little kind of behind the scenes thing to get you going very quickly with this feature. I do want to mention a couple nagging issues. It's a challenge for us because when we do this co-development with Windows, we also need to get you guys super excited about this feature, because we went to try to get a bug fixed in Windows 10, and they said, how many people do you have using this feature? And we said, okay, we have this many people using this feature. And they said, oh, our bar is like 100 million people to publish a hot fix, right? Because it's Windows 10, and they're like super into usage metrics. I'm like, I don't have 100 million people hitting this bug, so how are we going to ship this? So we got to get everybody. You're going to recruit one friend who's going to recruit one friend who's going to recruit. We're going to get 100 million people, because I have this bug in here that's been beating my head up against the wall, is that if you don't have internet connectivity when you first log on, Cortana like misses its login with Power BI, and so you have to restart the Cortana process if you don't have internet access. So there's like these little nitpicky issues that our next release window is, there's a Windows release that we'll be able to hook to. So that's my other plea to get my bug bar for my feature. So, okay, we got a minute left. I know I covered a lot of stuff. Like I said, I probably bounced around a lot of different level sets for the meeting. As you can see, one of the great things about Microsoft is that it's a place that you kind of get to take some risk, and you get to do some crazy visionary stuff. You get to work with incredible teams like the Cortana team, the MSR team, and the different natural language teams we had in Bing. And so we're really excited about the roadmap of this features and some of the unique things we can do at Microsoft to really change how people explore and understand and find information. So I hope you guys have really enjoyed this conference. I hope you enjoy the rest of your sessions today, and thank you very much.